Bill Hemmer has been the calm in the storm. For nearly 3 decades, reporting from the front lines of America's most shocking breaking news moments. Hurricanes, political upheavals, terror attacks. If it made the headlines, Hemmer was there, steady and unshaken. But the story he's rarely shared is the one behind the microphone. Millions know his voice. Few know the cost of living a life built on non-stop headlines. For years, whispers followed him. No wife, no children, no explanation. Now, for the first time, the truth behind Bill Hemmer's solitude is coming to light. A story far more complicated and far more heartbreaking than anyone ever imagined. This is the story of how Bill Hemmer built a legacy in journalism and what it may have cost him along the way. Before the world ever knew his name, long before national television and the bright lights of CNN, it all began quietly in the heart of Cincinnati. Bill Hemmer's first steps into broadcasting weren't on a grand stage. They were behind a small, student-run radio microphone at his high school. There were no cameras, no big audiences, and certainly no paycheck. Most teenagers that age were caught up in weekend parties, hanging out with friends, or scrolling through music charts. But Hemmer was different. From the moment he picked up that microphone, he discovered something far more compelling than fame or fun, a sense of purpose that gripped him completely. At just 16, Hemmer approached every broadcast with the intensity of a seasoned professional. Every word mattered, every pause counted. He didn't just speak into the microphone, he rehearsed, edited, and rewrote until he felt it was perfect. While his classmates hurried out the door to catch movies or hang with friends, Hemmer stayed behind, notebook in hand, scripting, practicing, imagining a future that few could see yet. It wasn't obsession, it was clarity. That early dedication was a glimpse into a pattern that would define his life, a relentless commitment to craft, a hunger to learn, and a drive to excel no matter the odds. When he stepped onto the campus of Miami University, that intensity didn't just continue, it escalated. Hemmer didn't attend classes merely to pass. He immersed himself fully in journalism. He joined clubs, chased internships, and spent countless hours in the campus radio station, often staying late into the night perfecting segments, learning how to tell stories that mattered. For most students, college is a time for self-discovery, friendships, and fun. For Hemmer, it was a training ground for excellence, a laboratory where he could shape the skills that would carry him to the national stage. Every lecture he attended, every assignment he undertook, every extra hour he spent in the newsroom was a brick in the foundation of a career he was building deliberately. Graduation didn't bring a pause, a break, or a period of uncertainty. Hemmer went straight into the television world, landing a sports reporting job at WCPO-TV in Cincinnati. On the surface, it seemed like a standard reporter's role. In reality, it was a grueling test of stamina, precision, and composure. Sports reporting meant late nights, weekend shifts, and the pressure of capturing every critical moment perfectly, often live. Many would crumble under the stress. Hemmer thrived. He loved the fast pace, the unpredictability, and the adrenaline of telling real stories as they unfolded. Those early years were more than work. They were a proving ground, sharpening his instincts and teaching him that professional growth often demanded personal sacrifice. That drive didn't go unnoticed. By 1995, at just 30 years old, Hemmer made the leap from local television to the national stage with CNN. The move was transformative. He went from being a talented yet largely unknown reporter in Cincinnati to a recognized face on screens across America. It was the culmination of years of quiet preparation, tireless effort, and a single-minded focus that started in a small high school radio studio and carried all the way to the nation's most watched news networks. For Hemmer, the journey was never about shortcuts or luck. It was about mastering his craft and embracing the relentless pursuit of excellence. The next decade of Bill Hemmer's life was nothing short of relentless, a grueling test of endurance, talent, and personal sacrifice. He was dispatched to cover stories that spanned the extremes of human experience, from the aftermath of devastating hurricanes to the tense atmosphere of political conventions, from explosive breaking investigations to some of the darkest and most unforgettable moments in modern history. There seemed to be no limit to where he would be sent. The 2000 Florida recount, with its chaos and national scrutiny, became the defining moment that thrust him into the spotlight. Weeks turned into a blur of living out of suitcases, grabbing meals between live broadcasts, and carrying the weight of expectations from a nation glued to every update. It was during this period that he earned the nickname the Chad Lad, a testament to both his resilience and his growing reputation.
Yet the acclaim masked the quiet erosion of his personal life. Relationships, stability, and even basic routines became luxuries he could no longer afford. Then September 11th, 2001 hit, and nothing would ever be the same. Hemmer was sent to Afghanistan, reporting from a war zone, bearing witness to destruction and human suffering on a scale few could imagine. The danger was constant, the isolation was suffocating, and the emotional burden of seeing the immediate aftermath of global tragedy up close was overwhelming. Assignments like this don't just test skill, they reshape perspectives, priorities, and what one is capable of enduring. Amid the chaos, there was no room for romance, no chance to cultivate normalcy, and no time to build the foundations of a home life. By the time he left CNN in 2005, Hemmer had seen more breaking news, more tragedy, and more historical upheaval than most journalists would in a lifetime. His career was ascending rapidly, yet the personal costs were mounting invisibly behind him.
Joining Fox News in 2005 marked a critical turning point. Professionally, it was the pinnacle of opportunity, a platform to reach millions and cover stories of national significance. Personally, it signaled the quiet collapse of what remained of his personal life. The network quickly recognized what he brought to the table: composure under pressure, an almost uncanny ability to convey clarity amid chaos, and a reliability that executives knew they could count on. This made him invaluable, and soon he was placed at the center of nearly every major national story. Hemmer became co-anchor of America's Newsroom, partnering with Dana Perino. Their partnership was more than professional. It was a precise, disciplined chemistry that transformed the show into one of the network's most trusted morning broadcasts. Audiences tuned in not just for the news, but for the confidence and consistency he and Perino brought to every segment. Executives leaned on him during the most uncertain and high-stakes moments, and his reputation as a journalist who could hold steady in any storm was cemented. But the trust and responsibility came at a steep cost. When others clocked out, Hemmer often stayed, reviewing scripts, preparing for breaking stories, and ensuring that every detail was perfect. Behind the bright lights and polished broadcasts, the personal sacrifices continued to accumulate. Relationships left unresolved, milestones missed, and a private life increasingly overshadowed by a career that demanded everything he had to give. It was a story of extraordinary success intertwined with quiet sacrifice, a life lived at the intersection of public recognition and private loss, proving just how high the price can be for those who chase the news that shapes a nation. When breaking news struck, there was no time to hesitate. He was expected to be ready before dawn, and when tragedy hit, sometimes multiple crises at once, he was always the first name called. Fox needed him on the ground wherever the story demanded. Elections in Iowa, hurricanes battering Florida, terror investigations in Boston, the devastating aftermath of Haiti's earthquake, London in 2005 after the bombings, military base shootings in Texas. No matter the place or the danger, he was there, capturing events as they unfolded, shaping the story for millions who would later tune in from the safety of their homes. Every assignment came with the cost of unpredictability. He left home on a moment's notice, often for stretches so long that any plan, even something as ordinary as a dinner or a weekend getaway, was impossible to keep. Birthdays, anniversaries, holidays, none of them were guaranteed. His life became a series of sudden departures, constant alerts, and deadlines that overshadowed everything else. That relentless uncertainty didn't just shape his career, it slowly eroded the foundation of his personal life. During this intense period, he maintained a relationship with Canadian model Dara Tamanevich, whom he had started dating the same year he joined Fox. On paper, they seemed perfect, a rising news anchor and a world-class fashion model. But their realities were worlds apart. Her life revolved around photo shoots, brand launches, and the fast-moving fashion world. His revolved around breaking stories, live reports, and being deployed to the next hotspot at a moment's notice. For 8 years, they tried to bridge the gap, but the cracks only grew with each missed holiday, each abrupt trip, each fleeting moment lost. He had always chosen the story over everything else, a pattern that had begun back in high school. By 2013, the relationship quietly ended. No press release, no statement, no explanation. It wasn't until later that the public learned about Tamanevich's DUI arrest, which briefly dragged their private history into tabloid headlines. For him, a man intensely private by nature, the media attention confirmed a long-held fear.
The closer his personal life came to the public eye, the faster it fractured. From that point forward, he refused to confirm any relationship, avoiding red carpets, photos with partners, or media commentary. While his career at Fox reached new heights, his personal world contracted into silence. The more visible he became on television, the more his private life receded into the shadows. Rumors filled the void his silence created. After his breakup in 2013, every interaction became fodder for speculation. Every woman he interviewed, every co-anchor he shared the screen with, became headline material. His choice to protect his privacy only amplified public curiosity. One of the first targets of this rumor mill was Sandra Smith, his co-anchor on America's Newsroom. Their on-air chemistry, born from hours of collaboration and mutual respect, was misread by viewers. Suddenly, every shared laugh or comfortable conversation was interpreted as a romantic entanglement. And just like that, a man who lived in the relentless pulse of breaking news found his personal life dissected, misinterpreted, and turned into a story he had no control over. The tension between his professional triumphs and personal sacrifices became a defining pattern. Each story he chased brought accolades and recognition, yet it widened the gap between the life he lived for the world and the life he longed to share with someone he loved. In the glare of public scrutiny, intimacy became impossible, and privacy became a fragile shield he could never fully lower. Every success, every headline, every broadcast seemed to pull him further from a normal existence, leaving a man celebrated for his courage and skill, yet quietly isolated behind the camera's lens.
The rumors didn't just follow him, they hunted him. They grew so intense that Smith's own marriage to marketing executive John Connolly had to be repeatedly mentioned in the press just to quiet the speculation. Nothing had ever happened between them, yet the public refused to believe two professionals could simply be colleagues. Then Megyn Kelly entered the picture. Their friendly exchanges during her years at Fox sparked a second wave of gossip. Both Kelly and Hemmer were quick to deny any romantic connection, stressing mutual respect and professional camaraderie. But once again, denial wasn't enough. His continued bachelorhood made every woman around him a potential headline. Dana Perino, perhaps his closest professional partner, became the next name attached. Their years together on America's Newsroom, built on trust, timing, and navigating breaking news, were misread as something deeper. Perino, married since 1998, never addressed the rumors, and neither did he. Their silence, meant to be dignified, only fed the public imagination. Then 2019 hit, and everything escalated. A shirtless photo of Hemmer went viral online, but it wasn't him. The image was a doctored Tiger Woods photo. Still, the damage was done. Speculation about his private life exploded, forcing the usually reserved anchor into a rare public defense. He confirmed the photo was fake and casually mentioned having a girlfriend. No details, no timeline, no identity. To the public, his relationships became riddles. To Hemmer, they were simply no one else's business. All the while, the relentless scrutiny reshaped his life into something quieter, more guarded. For most people, a demanding job means long hours or stress-filled deadlines. For Bill Hemmer, it meant a life dictated by the next breaking story, where every choice, every moment, was overshadowed by the relentless pace of the news. To viewers, he was simply dedicated, always in the right place at the right time. But behind the scenes, he was protecting something far more personal, himself. On the surface, he was the picture of calm professionalism, the anchor delivering the nation's news with confidence and poise. But behind that polished exterior was a life far more complicated, one ruled by urgency, chaos, and sacrifice. Being a national news anchor isn't just a job, it's a force that consumes every hour of your life. His days often began before dawn and didn't end until long after most of the country had gone to bed. Hurricanes, shootings, elections, terrorist attacks, they didn't wait for dinner, weekends, or holidays. When the world erupted, he had to be ready, camera live, while processing the devastation unfolding around him. Some assignments lasted days, others lasted weeks. Iraq, 9/11, the Boston Marathon bombing, Sandy Hook, Hemmer was there, in the eye of tragedy, reporting while the chaos reshaped his own life. Relationships? Nearly impossible to sustain when a phone call could whisk you across the globe in 12 hours. Family? A concept constantly interrupted by airports, hotel rooms, and temporary studios. By his mid-50s, a rhythm had formed, built on professionalism, sacrifice, and relentless commitment. Colleagues admired him, viewers trusted him, the newsroom relied on him.
But admiration doesn't fill the void left by missed birthdays, broken plans, and a life lived in fleeting snapshots between assignments. For Bill Hemmer, life without a wife wasn't a choice. It was the quiet, inevitable consequence of the path he had chosen. His career demanded everything, every hour, every ounce of energy, every ounce of focus. Personal attachments weren't just difficult, they were almost impossible. Year after year, the dream of building something intimate, of sharing life with a partner, seemed to drift further away, like a horizon he could see but never reach. Days blurred into nights filled with deadlines, breaking stories, and the relentless rhythm of solitude. Life outside the newsroom existed, but it rarely called for him. As Hemmer matured, the contours of his life became unmistakably clear. It wasn't chaotic, and it wasn't accidental. Every decision, every sacrifice, every missed personal milestone was part of a deliberate trajectory he had chosen. While a wife didn't wait for him at home, Hemmer carried a different kind of anchor: purpose. It grounded him in a way most people never truly experience. Outside the glare of cameras and the rush of breaking news, he poured his energy into service. Year after year, he returned to Cincinnati to host the George Niddle Memorial Bailey Place Golf Classic, a tribute to his grandfather, a chance to honor both family and community. The fundraiser wasn't just an event, it was a lifeline to something bigger. It supported senior living at Bailey, honoring family roots and the generations that came before him. Quietly, Hemmer had built a version of family life of his own making, one rooted in memory, community, and responsibility, rather than marriage or children. And that sense of duty extended far beyond family. Hemmer devoted himself to supporting veterans, especially those who had served in Iraq and Afghanistan. These appearances weren't merely ceremonial, they were deeply personal. They were a continuation of the stories he had reported, the sacrifices he had witnessed firsthand, the courage he had seen in men and women on the front lines. Through these acts of service, Hemmer found a connection that filled him profoundly, something no conventional relationship might ever have matched. In a life defined by relentless demands, he had found intimacy not in a partner, but in purpose, legacy, and the quiet bonds forged through service to others. Most people think of the newsroom as a place of deadlines, flashing lights, and constant pressure. But for Bill Hemmer, it was something else entirely. It became a second home. Colleagues like Dana Perino weren't just co-workers, they were allies forged in fire. Late nights chasing breaking news, tense moments on live feeds, and the relentless chaos of world events created bonds stronger than most family ties. No weekend dinners, no casual hangouts, just trust, loyalty, and an unspoken understanding that only those who faced the front lines together could share. Outside the camera, Hemmer mastered a rare kind of balance. On social media, he shared enough to stay visible, enough to remind the world he was there, but never enough to let anyone in completely. Always professional, always measured. Every boundary he set was intentional, protecting himself from the cost of too much exposure in a world that thrives on rumor. When it comes to Bill Hemmer, the headlines often whispered scandal and speculation, but the truth is far simpler and somehow even more fascinating. He never married, no secret romances, no hidden drama. His life was built around journalism, public service, and fiercely guarding his own space. Family, in the traditional sense, wasn't part of his story, and he lived it that way, quietly, confidently, unapologetically. In the end, Hemmer's legacy isn't found in gossip columns. It's in the stories he told, the calm he brought to chaos, and the work that continues to define him.